Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode 2 of the No Name Cinema Society. I got my cohorts here. First, we're going to go with Dave Joseph, who has nothing apparently. How you doing this week, Davey?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's not quite as cold, so I'm happy.
Cool. And of course, the indomitable Jay Money.
Indomitable. That is exactly how I describe myself every day. Indomitable. Yeah.
All right, as most of you know, that we are talking about the film Focus today, and going forward, all these shows, we're going to be basically just talking about one film at a time. With in each week, we might talk about like have an indie spotlight or talk about a classic film as we did last time. But our main focus today is Focus, which is the new Con Man movie with Will Smith and Margot Robbie that just opened this past Friday. And it was the #1 movie of the week at the box office, narrowly beating Mr. Gray. But even though it was the #1 movie of the week, it only grossed about 18.7 million, which was, not considered considered pretty weak weekend overall, I should say. So anyway, let's get right to it. Jay Money, why don't we start with you? Tell us your feelings on Focus.
Well, I think it's interesting that I went to a con movie and I felt really no reason to feel compelled about the con itself. I mean, let's look about con movies on a whole. There's usually some sort of compelling actual storyline that involves like a con. This movie felt like it wanted to be a lot of things. It felt like it wanted to be Ocean's 11, for instance, clearly. It wanted to be like The Sting. It felt like it wanted to be something maybe more romantically inclined, like Out of Sight, about two kind of star-crossed lovers that really didn't quite fit together correctly. But overall, I feel like it was trying to capture like an Elmore Leonard sort of sense. And it just didn't know where to go with that. There were so many things that were cobbled together about this movie that felt, so B-rate. Without giving too much away, certain scenes that took place for certain major sporting events, which clearly were not backed in any way. A lot of setup that didn't really pay off. I think ultimately the question is, what is a con movie really supposed to be? I think that with the biggest problem I have with the movie. Let me back up. The biggest problem I have with this movie.
Does it need to be like? Does it need to fit into a box?
Does it fit into a box? No, but I think that part of the thing about a con movie, the thing that draws people to a con movie is that it gives a viewer a sense that they are in on a con. It gives a viewer a sense that they have something that they probably don't, which is, a sort of a street smart savvy, sort of a cunning, a quality, and something that they can actually root for, because usually con movies involve people that are either grifting the system or grifting other cons. But this movie took like an interesting stance, because this movie was actually about pickpockets, which are grifting everyday people. And I really have to question whether or not people could really connect with that as a common core of this movie.
Well, I mean, like there was an element of pickpocketing, but there were two very large cons as a sting-like cons as a part of the movie.
Well, yes and no. The basis for Will Smith's character is that he is an infamous pickpocket, right? So he is, and he actually explicitly says in the movie that there is no bigger sort of fish for him to fry. It really is about him nickel and diming himself and reselling all his stuff, right?
Well, he lies. That he's lying when he says that.
Yeah, I guess he's lying. I mean, well.
Well, you can't use it to justify your point if it's not.
Well, I don't think he's actually lying, though, JB. I mean, I think that part of the problem with his character is the fact that he doesn't really understand where he fits in the grand scheme of this problem. I think that. Sorry.
Before you say too much, I want to let Davy Joe chime in here. I mean, you had a good minute or two, right? And you made a lot of points. I mean, we have the basic gist of your feeling. Is that fair?
Fair enough.
All right. So, Davy Joe, why don't you chime in?
For a movie that did kind of keep me off balance the way this one did, I was kind of disappointed in it. I mean, I thought I knew where it was going to go a couple times, and it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. But I still wasn't that taken with it. I thought Will Smith's role, he was trying to. I know that he was trying to come off cool and laid back and kind of calculated, but it almost at times was kind of, I don't know, sleepy or something. And J Money touched on it pretty pretty well. I thought that the Super Bowl was that was unbearably bad. I mean that the gambling that was.
What about like the con that happened as a part of the? I don't even think they called it a Super Bowl, but the con that happened.
They tried so hard not to call it a Super Bowl. They tried, but if you looked at the graphics, they were definitely crimping the Super Bowl style.
I mean, it was
really unable to actually legally call it the Super Bowl, which added a real flimsy sense of realism to it.
That's a really good point, David. You were saying.
Yeah, they've got this guy who's supposed to be this big-time gambler who's essentially betting that the guy's going to miss what is like an extra point. And
well, I mean, yeah, don't say too much, but just get to your.
But basically, when the people go and see the movie, the way that whole sequence ends is absurd. And anyone who knows anything, watches even casually the sport, it's ridiculous. But anyway, it just kind of took me out of it. It was a little, it was ridiculous.
The football aspect of it was absurd. That's what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you're talking about if you're talking about people that there's so many things that happen during a football game that are easy to bet on, and it would have been really easy for them to make these bets believable, and they didn't do it. And that bothered me. But to someone else it may not be that big of a deal, but it just seems so flawed to me that it was a distraction.
But I mean, like certain things were by design in terms of, and I'm trying to be careful with my verbiage here, but in terms of some of those bets, that was a designed element that the characters had designed.
Yeah, except I mean, to me though, if you're running a con or if you're trying to run a hustle, then you're gonna make bets that would be bad for you in the beginning so that you can lose. And they did lose a little in the beginning, but the bets weren't dumb. Okay. They weren't like that. It didn't make sense.
Well, if I can interject for a second, I think that Davy Joe's getting to the heart of something, which is there's a real problem with the believability of anyone being a con man in this movie. Nobody really seemed convincingly con man-ish because there was really never any indication. There was never a point where they really showed you their skills. There was a lot of talk about skills. There was certainly a lot of suggestion of skills, but there was never actually any proof. There was a lot of things the movie was trying to suggest was happening, but never really kind of brought forth,
Except when they did their cons.
Well, what were the cons? I mean, there were a couple scenes about them grifting strangers, certainly. There was the overall big one in the middle, which, I mean, was not a very complex con in a lot of ways. It was pretty straightforward and fairly flimsy, and also, I mean, the scene in general suffered a lot from the editing, but I do feel like there was kind of a lack of suspense in that con. There was also kind of a lack of suspense in all the other cons that were happening.
How did it suffer from the editing?
Sorry?
How did it suffer from the editing?
I do feel like there was such a drawn out, I think that gets back to the idea of what Will Smith was trying to do in this movie. I think that Will Smith, to David Joe's point, felt very weary in this movie, and I think that he was trying to seem experienced and weary. I think that he was trying to seem, with the weight of the world on his shoulders as an experienced con man. He came across really just feeling tired, unfortunately. He looked his age. He looked 46, and a hard 46 at that. And I think in that scene especially, they were trying to draw out his drama in a way that felt really wooden. I think that scene for me dragged on and on without any sense of suspense whatsoever because they were telegraphing ahead of time what was going to happen. It was very clear that he was going to step into that room and sort of put down the gambit that he did. It was very clear that whatever happened was going to propel the future of their relationship together. I just didn't really feel invested in what was in the outcome of the event, one way or the other. And also, frankly, BD Wong, who plays the man he was betting against, was trying hard to wring out something in that scene. He was trying hard to play up some sort of fantastic element, and it just felt like he was yelling on deaf ears. It just felt like there wasn't much he could really play with there. It was a very vapid, sort of shallow interpretation of these, what should have been sort of heavy-hitting characters.
Yeah.
Who should have been heavy hitting?
Well, Will Smith's character in general, Nicky Spurgeon, I believe was his name. Spurgeon, fantastic name. Really wanted to set him up in this movie as sort of a serious heavy hitter. I do think that in general, this movie was set up for Will Smith to become the next step of his evolutionary acting career. He's trying so hard to not be the effervescent sort of bubbly boyish guy that he always was. He's trying so hard to have gravitas.
I mean, this is a guy with 2 Oscar nominations already, so I don't think he needs to try that.
2 Oscar nominations that have been forgotten at this point. His last feature, After Earth, was a massive failure. This is, by all accounts, supposed to be his comeback, especially on the way towards the new DC reboot that Warner Brothers is trying to do in 2016 with him and Margot Robbie again. This is kind of the introduction to that process. I mean, this is supposed to be the thing that helps reinvigorate Will Smith's career at this point.
Why does it have to be an ulterior motive? Why is it like some master plan as opposed to a script he just liked?
Do you really think he just liked it? I mean, he definitely was not the first choice for this movie. They definitely talked about casting the people, including Ben Affleck and Emma Stone, which honestly could have even worked better, frankly, from what I think. But I do believe that.
Say that Ben Affleck is a better actor than Will Smith.
I'm sorry.
You will not get me to say that Ben Affleck is a stronger actor than Will Smith.
I'm not even trying to get you to say that Ben Affleck's a stronger actor than Will Smith. I do think that Ben Affleck has a way of playing world-weary with a smugness that allows him to be kind of forgivable, whereas Will Smith just seemed like a tired guy. He just seemed like a tired old man. And also, honestly, they're developing this relationship between him and Margot Robbie, and I felt lecherous throughout the entire movie because their age couldn't have been more apparent. It really felt like this old man that was preying on this younger woman. It was an uncomfortable chemistry from the start, and it never managed to get off the ground. But that's a different.
I don't feel that at all.
Really? You felt like they had real chemistry?
I didn't feel that there was any cradle robbing aspect of it, and I definitely felt like they had real chemistry. Davey Joe.
Where did you see the chemistry?
Hold on, Davey Joe. Do you have anything? Or you just?
No, I did think that I thought they had chemistry, and I thought that maybe she was the stronger of the two. I thought she did a great job, but I think that the way he played the role was a little too cool, a little too laid back at times. But I didn't think the performances were horrible.
Okay. Well, okay. I clearly like the movie more than you guys.
Yes.
And nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to say that I love the movie. I admit on some level that I'm a sucker for con man movies, and two of my favorites are the ones that Jay Money already talked about, The Sting and Ocean's 11, or the new Ocean's 11. The original Ocean's 11 from the 60s was an embarrassment, but
yes,
the new Ocean's 11 is really strong, and I enjoy the con man movie in general. Like, I enjoy, and I'm always on my toes when watching con man movies. My main objection, and one of the reasons why I think that maybe it felt a little hollow to you guys, is, I bought the cons themselves. Like, the plot, I had no issues with. The writing, I thought was strong. The editing, I thought was particularly strong. Direction, I thought was fairly good as well. I thought it moved pretty decently. But I tend to prefer things that move at a more Proustian pace. I tend to shy away from things that move at that are a little too rapid, because I feel like you lose detail. But the thing that I objected to the most, I think, was the lack of character development. The performance is fine. I didn't have any issues with those. The chemistry or the age difference, but I do feel like her character in particular was, was fairly two-dimensional. And both of their backstories are mentioned in passing. His backstory sort of plays into it a little bit more as it goes along, but in a way that seems kind of forced. And I almost would prefer it if they're going to do it, might as well just forget all the backstory altogether, and just like show me one big con and let all the other stuff fall by the wayside. It'd just be more fun that way, rather than try and shoehorn this backstory and then not really develop it enough. To the other point, and the result of that, and I think this is really at the root of both of your issues, is aside from wanting them to win, I didn't necessarily care if they, I had very little emotional engagement. I guess is the point. I was entertained, but I was not, enthralled or. I actually like the if we break it down, forgetting the grifting, if we break it down to two large cons, the plot is basically two large cons, the heart of the movie. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, but I'd like to point out that the two large cons, again, involve characters that are not in and of themselves in any way negative. I mean, getting back to what I was saying before, a lot of great con movies sort of set up your antagonists as people that you don't want to root for. And in this movie, the antagonists really weren't... Actually, if anything, the antagonists were based off really terrible cultural stereotypes, and that was kind of the only thing that you could root against them on. There was nothing actually, bad about either of the people that we were kind of facing off against, but that's, just one of the oversights in this movie in general, honestly. Go on.
Well, I guess I'm done. But I'm not going to say here I love the movie. I'm just going to say that it's not. I would recommend it though. I would say pay the money to see it because it's enjoyable. I thought it an enjoyable 2 hours. It lacked depth. It lacked depth and any sort of like.
It didn't just lack depth though. It lacked heart. What is it that you found so amusing about it?
I thought it was clever. I enjoyed the what I was going to say is if you separate them into two cons, I enjoyed the cerebral quality of both those cons, and I also know that I have I'm more willing to take larger suspensions of disbelief than either of you guys.
Well, I don't know about that. Come on.
Yeah, in this
I'm willing to. I'm just saying I'm willing to go along with the movie a lot longer, before I throw out the word absurd. I bought it. I was fine with it.
JB, are you suggesting that my assertion that it didn't seem in any way realistic, that either the character seemed realistic as con man, or basically anyone in this movie seemed realistic as a con man, was a problem with my willing suspension of disbelief?
I don't know. Maybe I'm suggesting that's a possibility.
I think,
really?
Yeah, I think that's what he's suggesting. I think he's right. I think that you couldn't do it, and that's fine. But
yes, you're absolutely correct. I couldn't believe Will Smith as a criminal element because I just don't have the patience for allowing myself to understand him as a criminal. I wouldn't allow myself to feel that way.
Yeah. I had in terms of believability, I had no problem with that. I was at the end of the first con. It was feeling long, but I felt like the payoff earned it. And that's one interesting thing about con man movies in general. Except for maybe the Sting. Sting was probably the one I had the earliest.
Let's back up for a second. What was the payoff at the end of the long con there?
Well, the end result, with trying to be vague, I thought the end result, and then I enjoyed their flashbacks that go back and explain things. And once it was explained, I don't think this is saying too much. I particularly thought the iPod thing was clever. I thought that was a neat little trick. But because I was certainly aware of the song as it was playing, and that's another good thing. Another point I want to give to the movie is the soundtrack. I thought was actually very strong. Songs that you wouldn't expect to hear were brought out and used. And I also, in the careers of these directors, Glenn Ficarra and John Fuqua, it's leaps and bounds above anything they've ever done. It's a big leap for them from a cinematic directorial point of view.
Really?
What's that?
Really?
Well, seeing that Cats and Dogs and its sequels are their previous work, it's I'm not making so much of an ambitious statement, unless you guys are really big fans of Crazy Stupid Love, which I was not.
A Bad Santa? How do you feel about Bad Santa?
You know what? That's a fair point. I have not seen Bad Santa, and I know a sequel's in the works, but I have to admit ignorance on Bad Santa. But I mean, like, I was impressed for like a late March release or late February release that it was so that I did feel like there was a lot of choices being made from a camera point of view. I thought the framing was really strong, and I did think the editing, like the way that like maybe it wasn't fast enough for you guys, and maybe that's the issue. But I thought the juxtaposition of images and the way the shots moved from one to the other was good.
No, I want to get back to that for a second because I don't agree with you about. It wasn't slow to me, and I didn't have a problem with the snappy editing. I think that there just wasn't enough content for the snappy editing to be worthwhile.
Oh, I'm saying I don't think it was snappy editing. I think
I thought it was snappy editing to some degree, but I also feel like it wasn't that I. Look, to me, the whole thing felt like the director was constantly shouting, "Cut! This is this scene is a wrap. This scene is a wrap. We're done here with this scene." Like it felt like it was very contrived. It felt like very placed in an order, and there wasn't really a natural quality to it because I was always aware of the director's self-awareness about this project. I was always aware of the fact that it was something that somebody was piecing together.
I'm not going to disagree with you about that. I mean that statement alone. I mean, I can cut out everything else around that statement, but if you took that last sentence and a half, I would agree with that completely.
All right.
But I have to say, that's the nature of con man movies. I mean, I think you could say the same exact thing. If you're going to talk about contrivances, you can say the same exact thing about The Sting. I mean, like, and that's the nature of the con man movie. And I also thought it was interesting that, having been introduced to con man movies, I think I was starting this thought and got cut off earlier. Having been introduced to from The Sting and early on, I found myself constantly waiting for the turn. I was constantly on my feet for the next thing, and the next turn, and it might have been a lot more fun if I wasn't necessarily aware of that. I mean, like, I think that that both enhanced and detracted from my experience, and that I know that seems like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but enhanced in the sense of, like, I was constantly, like, watching. I was constantly aware and involved in that sense.
I totally agree, because I think that's what people understand about this genre as a general sense, is that you were waiting for that turn to happen.
Right. And you could also argue that that's a detraction on some level because there was nothing that was going to surprise me. There was nothing that they were going to the how might have been a surprise, but there was nothing that was going to really shock me and make me feel like, satisfied from being shocked. Like, for example, a movie that I think we've all seen, or maybe not David, I don't remember, but the movie we talked about certainly at the Oscar thing is, I had not read the book, so Gone Girl I did feel very surprised by constantly.
Sure.
As I watched it a lot, and that's an experience that I could never have with Focus, given my. And you know me, I don't like to know too much about the movie going in, but I certainly knew it was a con man movie, and that's very clear from any sort of advertisement that they have, and that alone was enough for me to lose a little bit of that surprise factor.
Sure.
I have to say though that as being as vague as possible, the thing that I was positive was going to happen didn't happen, and that was kind of cool. So look at I gotta be honest with you. I really think it's that first major con. It just was awful. And if it wasn't for that, I liked the movie. And I also thought McCraney was great.
I agree with Gerald McCraney. Yes. Good performance. I mean, but similarly, he was good, but also similarly
was he a weird casting choice? Was he kind of a weird casting choice for this?
In the sense of his I'm trying.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to.
So, I mean, Jonathan, do you mean in terms of lineage?
Well, yes and no, because
Is that what you meant?
let me back up and say this. Because of lineage, it was sort of an easy way for them to throw you for a loop. You know what I mean? It was sort of a contrived device for them to kind of trick you.
I agree with that point completely. It definitely occurred to me. But it's funny. Like I said earlier, I approach these things sometimes with a sort of an allowances, and that is if I made an allowance there, that is the most tenuous allowance that I made.
That's fair. What did you guys think of Adrian Martinez's performance? And Adrian Martinez was the rather rotund sidekick, basically, to Will Smith's Nicky.
David Joe.
I thought he was fine. He was funny. I don't really have a whole lot to say about him. How about you, JB?
It was good. I thought it was strong. Actually, I mean, he fulfilled the role and delivered his line. I mean, his character's not written with a lot of depth. He was charming and entertaining. Hit all his marks. Did the lines. With good choices. And so I think he fulfilled his role admirably. Money, you brought him up.
Well, I brought him up because I think that he is probably the only other really notable co-star in this movie. I think that there's so little made of other characters in this movie, and I definitely agree with you, JB, on a whole about how little development there are characters in general in this movie. I think that this movie wanted to be a lot of different things, including kind of a comical, and I believe that his performance was really kind of relied on to be kind of the comic foil in this. And it worked to some degree, and it didn't work to some degree. There were definitely times when I thought there were some really funny things that he said, but also that there were some funny lines in the script in general. But there were plenty of times when he seemed incredibly unable to deliver anything. Like, it just seemed like half of his performance was kind of a dull thud on the screen, and half of his performance was a way to liven up the screen.
Adrian Martinez?
Yeah, we're talking about Adrian Martinez.
Okay. Because, I mean, that's similar to what you were saying about Will Smith. So I just
no. What I said about Will Smith is that Will Smith was kind of sleepwalking through the entire role. Adrian Martinez, totally different, just unable to land some of the comic timing that was necessary for this. And I do believe that the writers directors put all their faith in Adrian Martinez to sort of save that aspect of this movie.
Well, I mean, or you could say the writer put their faith in that character to, I mean, save the movie. The movie doesn't. None of my movies have comic reliefs. I don't think a movie requires comic relief, but I mean.
Well, but I think in this case, this movie specifically was trying so hard to be a charming con man movie. They needed that element. They needed something to seem charming and comical as well.
I find Will Smith charming.
I would never find Will Smith charming, but he was. It's like the guy was on Klonopin this entire time. Like, he was just dead-eyed, unable to crack a smile. He was trying hard. He was trying hard to be understated. And I think that Will Smith doesn't really know how to be understated yet. I think that his impression of understated is to be half asleep.
Well, I would point to maybe the point of the pursuit of happiness, and suggest that maybe he does know how to do it at times.
That was also another feature that was used to sort of help and reinvigorate his career. That also opened underperformingly, unfortunately. I think it actually opened slightly under this one.
And yet he got a Best Actor Oscar nomination for it.
Well, he didn't get a win for a reason. I mean, Eddie Redmayne was also nominated.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's
So now you need to win to be considered a good performance.
Yeah, well, you kind of do in the Oscars. I mean, that's.
I see. Well, I mean, the other thing that I was thinking of is. One thing about this movie, I mean, and one of the reasons why I was okay for going to see it to begin with is if we could just, like, I think she might be my new favorite. Can you guys see the photo I put up here?
Yeah.
I mean, like before this weekend, I might have said that Mila Kunis was my you know how the laminated card that they used to have on Friends. This is probably a random thing, but like your favorite celebrities and the ones you're most attracted to. Before this weekend, I might have said Mila Kunis, but man, Margot Robbie is something else. If I could a male moment here, a male moment to reflect on that.
Davy Joe. Davy Joe goes first.
I got no arguments with that. She's gorgeous. Well, let me not to elevate the conversation too much. Did you find yourself without getting into whether it happened or not? Did you find yourself really caring about whether they ended up together at the end?
That's a good question. I would say for me was something more than ambivalent. I would say a little bit. If they didn't get together, like when they, I think I was 70% rooting for that, but I wouldn't have been like for example, for a movie we watched at our Oscar movie marathon last weekend was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. No. If they did not get together at the end of that, I would have been crushed and been violent about it. I didn't feel that way about this movie.
Sure.
J Money?
About them getting together, or just her in general?
I think we know the answer to this question, but
I'd like to hear you.
Well, no, for me, there was never a question in my mind about how it might end. I think that I think that she was, in a lot of ways, the thing that tried to keep this movie moving along. I think that she was, she was fighting the good fight against Will Smith's tepid character. I also think that she's probably a lot smarter than she's allowing herself to be. I think there's a lot of potential for her moving forward in the future, and I also think, again, this in a lot of ways was a test for Warner Brothers to see how they would work together. I think Warner Brothers is putting so much effort into their new DC Universe franchise, and these guys, her and Will Smith, are going to be co-stars in that movie as well, as long as with a lot of other characters. That I think that this is kind of a way for them to kind of put that together and see if it's going to work. I think she will hold up well. I think that she will probably progress well. I think that she did well with what she had to work with. It just wasn't that she had much to work with. I think that she was trying. I think she was trying hard to find something good in her performance.
All right, gentlemen. I already said who my favorite the actress that is most appealing to me strictly from black box libido point of view. If you guys had to name one lady, who would it be? J Money.
Well, it's funny because when I read about how Ben Affleck and Emma Stone were originally considered for this role, I definitely see this being written for Emma Stone, and I feel like Emma Stone would definitely fill this out in a way.
Not my question. My question is, you have to name one actress that is the top of your list from an attractive point of view. Who acts right now?
I still point to Emma Stone on that point of view. I think that she would be perfect, and I also think that I find her, great in a lot of ways. I think that, and in a lot of ways, I think that Margot is trying to kind of pattern herself after that. She's trying to pattern herself as down to home, with a sense of humor, a little bit awkward, a little bit nerdy, but also kind of a stunning knockout. And that's a really popular sort of, archetype in Hollywood right now.
I'm a big fan of Emma Stone. There's no doubt about that. She, I think she's much younger than Margot Robbie, isn't she?
I don't know. Margot Robbie's 24, 25. I don't know how old Emma Stone is. But
Margot Robbie reads older, and I would say Emma Stone reads a little younger.
That's definitely true. Emma Stone has baby eyes. They're really far apart. So.
Were you at the reading I did, a screenplay reading I did in 2010, January 2010? Were you there for that? Do you remember?
I don't think so.
All right. So remind me to tell you my Emma Stone story when we go off.
That sounds good.
Davy Joe.
God, I'm not prepared.
I know. sprung it on you, but I mean, like, come on, we're dudes. We've got one. We've got one in the back of our mind.
Totally ambushed me. I'm kidding. Don't get upset.
He's gonna be mad that you stole his fake girlfriend.
Can I punt to next week? I do want to answer the question. I don't want to dodge it, but I don't have any.
No. Play like the word association game. Pick one off the top of your head. Like I say to you, hot actress. What do you say?
All right. Well, all I can think about is Emma Stone right now because of this conversation. We'll go with Emma Stone.
I'm gonna pick one for Davy Joe. I'm gonna say Maggie Smith. Maggie Smith for Davy Joe.
Maggie Smith was a looker in her day. Prime Miss Jean Brody.
Yeah.
So I checked Facebook, guys, and well, we don't have any viewers, so.
That hurts.
So we're not going to Facebook posts. But any closing thoughts and focus before we move on?
Real quick, I just want to answer the question that I posited. The only thing about the movie I think at the end that I cared about was whether the two of them would get together. I cared more about that than the con itself.
I was really interested in the cons. I love that sort of cleverness. Maybe because I can't write it. I could never write that the subterfuge.
The second con is good, but I definitely all I cared about towards the end was, how are they gonna end up together? Cool.
All right, Jay, you're good. Jay Money, you're good.
Yeah, all I would say is that I thought it was a ridiculously boring and contrived movie, but it came in #1 at the box office, so it did what it had to do. It had to show up with about 20 mil, and that's basically what it did. It took 30 mil worldwide, so I feel like it'll probably be considered a success by the end of its run.
It's gonna make money.
Yeah, great for them. I want Will Smith to continue to do good projects because I like Will Smith. I want now Margot Robbie to do good projects because I was intrigued by her. This was the first time I really paid attention to her performance. Even though I saw her in Wolf of Wall Street, no, she was in Wolf of Wall Street, and she was a character in that was also very flimsy and vapid. I would love her to move past the sort of generic blonde that she has been typecast in and to do other things. Because I think there's a lot of potential there for her.
Margot Robbie.
So,
Jay Money, if you like Will Smith, I want to hear you talk about someone you don't like.
You know what? That's why I'm hard on him. I'm hard on him because I know he could do better.
All right, moving on, guys. It's time for our indie spotlight. Last week we talked about Blue Ruin, let's bring it back to Blue Ruin real quick because Davey Joe watched it for the first time. Jay Money and I really liked it. Our indie spotlight last week was Blue Ruin. Incidentally, I met with someone yesterday who knows the director, and so maybe we'll get him on at some point.
That'd be awesome. That'd be fantastic.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Davey Joe, what you think Blue Ruin? Say it now before the director comes on.
Such a good movie. Such a good movie. And I would even if
are you just saying that now that I said the director's wife would come on?
Here's the thing, like I totally would just say that because but I really do think that. No, it was great. I mean, I liked the way God, what was the main character? Well, who's the actor?
I don't remember the actor's name. Not
anyway, the way I like the fact that he never really like becomes a total badass, but he still kicks ass. I don't know if that you know what I mean. I that's not eloquent, but
no, I know exactly.
It never is, Davy Joe. Let's move on. All right, so that was Indie Spotlight last week, so that's a good potential. I don't know if it's on video yet. I think this one is, though.
It's on Netflix.
Is it on Netflix? Well, there you go. So
it is on Netflix. I watched it on Netflix.
This week, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's a film that was in Sundance last year. It's a film called, I don't know if you can see it. You probably can. It's called Little Accidents. It stars Elizabeth Banks, Josh Lucas, and I think a real find, an actor by the name of Boyd Holbrook, who was also in this Walk Amongst the Tombstones with Liam Neeson earlier this year. In both films, I thought he was interesting in Walk Amongst the Tombstones. In Little Accidents, he blew me away. And I'm not going to say Little Accidents is stronger than Blue Ruin. Blue Ruin is maybe a notch ahead of it. Little Accidents is really fascinating story. It's about a little coal mining town And there was an accident in the mines not too long ago, and Josh Lucas plays a character that was responsible, or he's one of the bosses at the mine, and he's under fire for potentially being responsible for the mine accident, or culpable, if you will, and so his son, it has an altercation with one of the sons of one of the miners, and so it affects the whole town. And Boyd Holbrook plays the only survivor. And so anyway, I assume you guys, neither of you have seen it.
Haven't seen it.
I haven't.
So something about, maybe you guys will see it for next time, and we can talk about it. But that's my recommendation, Indie Spotlight wise, for the week. But I mean, like, the thing that really, my big takeaway from the movie is Boyd Holbrook as an actor. Both of his characters in the two films are he's sort of a drug addict in the. You guys see Walk Amongst the Tombstones by chance, Liam Neeson?
Yeah, I saw it.
You remember the brother, the drug addict brother?
Yes, he is. Okay.
That's Boyd Holbrook. Did you like him in that movie?
It's hard for me to remember. Yeah, I think I did. I'd have to take a look at it again.
Money, have you seen it? Money, you haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. No,
Money?
sorry.
No worries. So anyway, yes, that is the he's something. But anyway, so he's a drug addict in Walk Amongst the Tombstones. Here, he's just sort of like a Southern guy, miner. So he has this sort of grungy look to him. He's a grungy look in both films. I'd be really interested to see him do something, completely different from either of those things. But he played this part beautifully, very detailed, nuanced. Less is more type guy. All right, so that's the Indie Spotlight. Now we're gonna talk about the classic film of the day, and I think it's fairly obvious. We had the Oscar movie marathon about a week and about 10 days ago, I guess, and we watched the 5 films. I talked about it last time, and the closing film of that night was from 75 years ago. Is the film that's right behind me here?
Mm-hmm.
You can see. Have you seen this film?
I have, a long time ago.
I've never seen it in full.
What parts have you seen?
I mean, I can't really clips here and there. I don't know. I don't think I've seen things in classes, and those classes were like 10 years ago. So.
Oh, come on! As if they're only 10 years ago. Listen to him, Davy Joe, trying to make himself seem younger.
Fine. In the 1950s, when I was in college.
Anyway, so yes, Stagecoach, and it's an important film for many reasons. Orson Welles said he watched the film 50 times before starting his work on Citizen Kane. It came out 2 years before Citizen Kane. It's also celebrated 75th anniversary last year, and that's notable because 1939 is considered the greatest year in the history of American cinema.
Sure.
And I would certainly posit that Stagecoach was the best film of that year. Better than Gone with the Wind, which is an amazing film. Better than Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, another great film. Wizard of Oz, Dark Victory, Gunga Din, Ninotchka, the original Mice and Men, the original Wuthering Heights, Love Affair, the original Love Affair. I'm sure I'm forgetting. Goodbye, Mr. Chips. Amazing year overall. And Stagecoach is the king of it. I could also make the argument that it was the start of what we now think about as modern cinema storytelling in terms of like the structure, the ensemble piece, the road movie. So that's what I have to say about Stagecoach. That's another recommendation for those of you who are curious about older cinema. In our brackets that we sometimes do, our movie brackets, it was in the 1930s bracket, and Stagecoach went up against the original Imitation of Life. The Imitation of Life that most people know, or the 1950s version with Lana Turner and Juanita Moore. There was another version in the 30s, I want to say 36, with Claudette Colbert And anyway, so that's what I went up against, and Stagecoach won handily. So Stagecoach moves on to the second round in the 30s bracket fairly easily. I assume you guys have not seen the original Imitation of Life.
No.
Have you seen the 1950s Imitation of Life?
No.
No, I'm familiar with it, but I haven't seen it.
It's a controversial movie, but it's from a cinematic point of view, it's amazing. Douglas Sirk's probably his best work. Okay, so that wraps everything we had planned. Do you guys have some closing thoughts, Davy Joe?
Oh, you got me thinking about John Ford. I want to watch The Searchers now.
So you have seen The Searchers then?
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, that's his best movie. That may be the best movie ever. Yeah, it's incredible.
Not going to argue about the. I mean, Stagecoach. But I mean, if you like Searchers, you love Stagecoach. Stagecoach was what introduced the world to John Wayne. There would be no Searchers without Stagecoach.
Yes.
And there's even this one shot, this dolly shot, a very rare thing for a 30s film, a dolly shot that like introduces him into the movie. His first shot in the movie, a dolly shot like from a what we call a cowboy, knees up, all the way to a close-up of his face when he first enters the screen. It's almost like, here's your new star, America. It's pretty cool. So yeah, and what's interesting about Stagecoach is he's young, like probably younger than a lot of what you've seen him in, what he's known for. He's young and he's fast and he's like, there's a hipness to him, even though it's a film that's 75 years old. But Searchers, yeah, have you at least seen The Searchers, J Money?
No, I haven't actually. Sorry.
Oh, dude, homework.
We need to get J Money caught up on some of these films here.
Where are they streaming? Where are they streaming at this point? That's
it's got to be streaming, huh?
Gotta be streaming. That's right. Yeah.
Funny, I was thinking today about I was returning a Netflix DVD. I still get the DVDs, and I was thinking about movie stores and just because the thought that occurred to me is like I can barely remember a time when I felt like I had to get a movie back in on time.
Sure.
I can't, and it's such like an antiquated thought anymore. It's apropos of nothing, but
there is a kind of a comeback for that, just in the sense that there is like vinyl comebacks. I mean, where I am, for instance, in Brooklyn, there is a video store still in operation that is.
Is it an offshoot like Kim's Video?
Yeah, I mean it's kept in operation because people in this neighborhood are very committed to the idea of keeping that thing alive as a community sort of resource. So. I personally am not a member, so it's like
clearly, but maybe you should be, and you can find The Searchers.
I possibly could, or JB, if you could just send me a link or something, maybe that would be pretty cool too.
Well, looks like I'll be in New York in April, so I can just bring you this video.
Yeah, bring me your copy.
So, have you seen any John Ford, J Money?
Yes. Crap. I mean,
Liberty Valance, maybe.
I am blanking on anything that I would have.
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is a big one. I mean, also later John Ford. The Quiet Man was one.
Look, guys, I know that John Ford is a major figure. I know that I should know more about John Ford than I do.
No, it's
Grapes of Wrath. Grapes of Wrath.
Grapes of Wrath I've definitely seen, sir. Sure.
Okay, so there you go. That's John Ford.
Yeah, come on. Everybody that's went through like 10th grade English has seen Grapes of Wrath. That's not really fair.
I mean, I'm trying to help you out here. I'm trying to make you seem like not as much of a Philistine, not knowing John Ford film.
Okay, I'm definitely a Philistine. We all know this.
Hey, Money, you had. Did you have any closing thoughts?
Well, just getting back to focus for a second, I would say that it opened at #1 for a reason. I was in a theater on a Friday night in New York at 9:30 p.m. with probably 10 other people, and I would say that if you're looking for a feature where you don't really have to pay attention, but you want to make out, this is a great feature for you because it doesn't matter if you follow the plot. It doesn't matter if you follow the dialogue. It doesn't matter if you care about the performances. It's a great feature for you to sit back in a seat, sit down with your lady friend or man friend, depending on your situation, and let it go. Enjoy yourself. If I didn't like it, that's fine, but plenty of other people did.
But you said there were 10 other people in the theater.
Yeah, there were 10 other people in the theater, and when I went to a theater where now they're giving you reserved seating. I don't know how new that is out in LA or other places, but in New York it's relatively new. And people came in and they were confused because they weren't sure if they should.
Standard reserved seating is standard here.
Is it a standard there? In New York, it's still a relatively new situation, and the people came in and they were confused because they weren't sure if they should sit in their seat or if they could just get up and go wherever they wanted later on. And the usher basically made a joke about how the fact that anyone on a Friday night at 9:30 in New York should not be seeing a movie in the theater. They should be out partying. And he had a very valid point.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so that's your closing thought?
That's my closing thought. Go see it and go suck face throughout the entire process.
Jesus.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, it's time to... David Joe, do you have more?
No. Bring it to an end, man.
All right. So not 90 minutes this time. We're going to wrap it up and say goodbye. I can announce that we are going to try and do this a week from tonight, and we're going to talk about Chappie, which is Neil Blomkamp's latest endeavor, latest science fiction endeavor, the director of District 9 and Elysium. Let's set that up a little bit, guys. I know I might be... I didn't tell you that I might bring this up, but just, set up next week. I mean, how do you guys feel about the District 9 Elysium, Neil Blomkamp so far? He also, I don't know if you know, just got hired to do another Alien movie with Sigourney Weaver.
Right. I personally love District 9. I didn't see Elysium. I heard a lot of negative things about it, but I plan to see it before I watch Chappie now at this point.
Okay.
I'm a little concerned that Chappie looks like a retreading of a lot of things he did in District 9, but we'll see what happens.
Or it could also be a retreading of Short Circuit and Short Circuit 2. But,
there's a lot of retreading going on in this movie just in general. That's definitely true.
Davey Joe, have you seen either of those films?
District 9, I liked it very much. I have not seen Elysium.
Is there a reason that you guys didn't see Elysium for liking District? The reason I went to see Elysium is because I like District 9.
Well, it's funny because I really wanted to see Elysium, and then I heard so much negative feedback that I said, okay, I'll put that on the back burner, and then I just never got to it.
Yeah,
who is it that you guys are, specifically J Money, who is it that you're listening to that makes you go or not go see movies? Because clearly it's not me. Whatever, you are not going to see movies based on my recommendation or vice versa. So who is it that you trust?
Maybe we don't talk on a daily basis. If we talked on a daily basis, it might be different. But just other friends and acquaintances, and also there was critics.
You have other friends and acquaintances?
No, you're right. I don't. I don't know why I'm lying. I'm sorry.
I'm with you guys. I like District 9. As the one who saw Elysium, there's a thing that I feel like sometimes, let's just say it was heavy-handed. And I'm worried Chappie might be along that route as well. But Elysium, District 9, I thought it had some thematic points, as good sci-fi does. Good sci-fi will sort of reflect on modern times. But and both films did. District 9 did it with a little more balance. Elysium felt awfully heavy-handed and sort of making its point with a hammer, instead of with the pen or a feather or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't my best point.
But I am excited for him to do Alien, or the next Alien sequel. Even though I'm annoyed that they're going to discount the last two sequels, I'm excited that he is on board for this.
I'm one of the few people that likes Alien 3.
I'm with you. I like Alien 3. Even though it was a project that could have been so much better because it got stuck in development hell forever, it was still a pretty interesting movie ultimately.
And it brought us David Fincher. I mean,
David Fincher, exactly. I mean, I even like Alien 4. I like all the Alien movies because I think they're distinctly relative to their directors, and I think there's a lot of
Alien 4, Alien Resurrection. I can't.
You know what? It's the kind of thing where I understand why it's either a taste or a don't. I don't fault anyone for not liking it. I just think that it's all interesting because they're all so indicative of the directors that ended up helming them that I find them fascinating as projects.
In last May, we screened the original Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien, at our classic movie series, and in Los Angeles anyway. And it was great to see it again. It was up and it got a very visceral reaction.
Yeah, it's still a great movie. I watched it again last year too, so it still holds up really well.
Davey Joe, you've been quiet.
Yeah, Alien. I've seen them all. I can't tell one from the other. They're fine.
Well, guys, I really thought we'd be down to 15 minutes, but instead we were 54 minutes this time.
It's going on.
Well, that's not bad. We kept it under an hour, so that's pretty good.
I'm amazed. So I'm surprised we talked about Focus as long. I thought it'd be a little quicker, but que sera, sera. We had a thorough discussion. unedited, unaltered, and with 0 viewers the whole time. So maybe next time. Maybe it's not a lack of interest in us. Maybe it's a lack of interest in Focus.
It's probably like in both, frankly, but that's fine.
All right, say goodbye, Davey.
Bye.
J Money, say goodbye.
Adios, people.
All right, thanks very much for those of you who eventually watch on YouTube, and have a good evening and enjoy your week. We'll see you next week with Chappie.